ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Brother Chairperson, my dear colleague, my brother Professor Dr. Said Arabi Ibid, the Dean of the Kuliah of Islamic Knowledge and Human Sciences, Dr. Shukran, heads of departments, brothers and sisters, good friends, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It gives me great pleasure indeed to be back in IIUM, this time not having to fulfill any KPIs anymore. This time is to fulfill the KPI of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is Rahman al-Rahim. So He is very lenient, very flexible, always insisting on yusr and not usr. And following Rahmatan lil Alameen. Very happy indeed to be back. Again, this is not my plan. This is His plan. My plan was to completely leave IIUM and do some other things, but somehow or other Allah has been otherwise, so I got myself placed in IIUM for, well, I did not state for how long, but it's open-ended as honorary fellow at IIUM. It is an Islamic training center for the officers of religious departments in the whole of Malaysia. So, very happy to see many. I was hoping to see the younger ones, because the younger ones are going to succeed us. They're going to be the leaders. Shukran is still the younger ones, so that is okay. But the rest on this side, not quite young. On this left side, not quite young. So what the advantage of being not quite young is that you can do whatever you like. You can sleep, you can move out, you can go anytime you like. But the young ones, I would like them to stay until the end. So I would like to engage the young ones. And I want them to get as much as they like from this old one, standing here before you, about the university, the history, the purpose, the objectives, the values, and the challenges we are going through. So I'm grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As I said, I had planned some other things, but Allah planned something else, and of course, Allah is Khairul Makirin. He is the best of planners. Good example of that is how before I left the university, I planned for Prof Kamal Hassan Memorial Library. Some brothers didn't like it, and the Prof side was also not happy with it. Why memorial? But what I did not tell them, but I told Nur Jannah why I put memorials, because I did not think I would live that long. And I felt that after I left the university will have other priorities. Why should I worry about, Kamal Hassan's books? So it could be just left there. And so I thought I might as well do it on my own with the help of Dr. Nur Jannah. At that time she was not a doctor. So we put up Kamal Hassan Memorial Library. And so happened that one of the alumni came by and saw that, and he got very angry with the university because he thought the university did this and Kamal is still around, although not in the university but in Bani. So he went, he expressed his dissatisfaction emotionally, and then he called me. He told me, I said, brother, I'm not telling you his name, but Dr. Noor knows that. I said, brother, please don't blame the university. It's not the fault of the university, it's me. You have to blame me. I am the one who insisted on putting Kamal Hassan Memorial Library. And then he said, okay, if that's the case, do you mind if I change the title? I said, okay, go ahead, do it. So he changed it, he beautified the whole thing. I think he spent a lot of money putting glass doors and beautification, interior decoration, all those zinatul hayat al-dunya, all that. Including my photo there. He insisted on all these things. But this old man has a trick in his mind. So I told Noja, don't worry, we just do it the way he wants it, because he will be there during the launching by our current rector. So after the launching, we can take all this out. He would come back, he would know about it, and true enough, he did not know. So we took out my picture and other things. Of course, we cannot take out the glass door. So Allah planned it that way. So I am now using M. Kamal Hassan Library as my office. And by the way, we are still in, this is the last day of IIUM al-Tashriq. So we can, of course, make a lot of takbir, for this day. At the end of Asr, we will not have the chance to make more takbir. Of course, we can continue doing takbir other ways. Allah Akbar. All right, so with that as a preamble, let me just start with this. Okay, first, gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all the ni'mah that Allah has bestowed upon this sinful servant of His. Allah knows how sinful His servant is. And وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا. If you try to enumerate the blessings and the favors of Allah upon you, you'll never be able to do so. That's true enough. And number two is I want to express my gratitude to IIUM for being very generous to me, helping me in many ways, sustaining me, and now, of course, rejuvenating me. In particular, to Dr. Abdul Rahim, the Executive Director of MSD, who was very concerned from the very beginning, and offering me all kinds of generous assistance, even I've been left. And then his assistant, Sister Zurima, who has also been kind towards me in many ways. And then to the academic staff of Centris, Dr. Akmal, Dr. Akram. Is Dr. Akram here? Dr. Akmal, not here. And of course to the indefatigable Dr. Noor Jannah, the co-editor of Natural Sciences from the Worldview of the Quran in 3 volumes, who made it sure it was finally published. Because there were times when this old man got very fed up, with the whole thing, and not to say give up, but just couldn't be bothered anymore. But she would continue, slog on, and until they completed it. Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much, Dr. Nurjana, for all that. And then she devoted her time to build up the FKH library with the help of the librarians, and I'm grateful to the librarians. At that time, there was Dr. Hassan Basri, he left, and then Sister Sharifah took over, and they took care of the library. And now you have one staff every day to be there in the library. It's not a landing library, it is just to go and read and relax. With the help of Sharifah, and then also IIUM alumni members, we have one here, Dr. Anna, Dr. Amna here? Yeah, Dr. Amna is here, and of course, her son is also the Saiful is here. Aslam is on the way from Kota Baru. And Dr. Ida, Dr. Fatima is the wife of Prof Malik, Dr. Amna, and others. And last but not least, to Brother Shahdi, the chauffeur, who has been driving me, not driving me crazy, but driving me very well to all places. Never had any problems with him over the last, I would say, maybe 10 years or more. And every time I had to go to the hospital, he would take me there. This is one of the privileges that the university extended to me. Dr. Rahim made sure that every time I wanted to go to hospital, then Shahdi would take me there. Before that, I used to grab a Grab. Like this morning, I took the Grab to come here. So that's why I used a Grab. And then he came to know about it, and I said, no, Shahdi will have to take me. And I had to go to hospital. 4 hospitals took care of me until now. So I'm grateful to all of this and many more who have been very, very kind, generous to me. So if I did not mention your name, please do not feel offended. Of course, my guru, Professor Malik Badri, is someone I have not mentioned here, but he has also been a source of great inspiration. And every time he came, he saw, he talked to me, that I felt, rejuvenated. And then my gratitude to the new rector for reviving the vision of Islam, and also for taking the song seriously. I thought I should not take song seriously, but he took it seriously. And of course, I put in Rahmatan lil Alameen many years ago. And now he is harping on that and making it a reality. So he is trying to actualize something abstract into socio-economic, socio-political facts on the ground. And leading the way is also, the name of our song. And now he uses that as our sort of motto of his book. And then also transforming our theoretical research. People in human sciences, particularly in revealed knowledge, will be more theoretical. Now he's making it, orienting it to be more practical, to be more useful to the society. So he's prioritizing inter and also transdisciplinary or integrated research instead of, we in revealed knowledge people remaining in our silos, secluding ourselves from the realities around the world in splendid isolation of one's comfortable zones. And also, he appointed me as honorary fellow of Centris. That brought me back here. If he did not appoint me as honorary fellow, I would remain stuck in Bangi and at Ilim. But he sent his people there, Datuk Rahim, and told me that rector wants me to come back here more often. And so then I got a letter from him appointing me as honorary fellow of Centris. And so now I am here at least 4 times a month. So I am here, by the grace of Allah, 4 times a month. One for what I call, the purpose is Islamization of knowledge. But I am using Fizilan Quran for that. And then the other one is Aslamatul Nafs, or Islamiyatul Nafs, and I'm using Al-Ghazali's Al-Muhlikat for that. So I'm covering the 2 dimensions of IOHK. Then I'm also available for academic consultation, not for the senior professors, but for the young ones. People below 40. Those above 40 not allowed to consult me. Prof, please come forward. Let's go. Oh. Okay, just put my back down. Thank you. Thank you very much. And then, yeah, for academic consultation, also once a month. And this is open from 12 to 2 or 2 to 4, or 10 to 12. Dr. Noor is in charge of my calendar, so she will inform people when I'm available. So I would like to really meet the young lecturers, because I want to know their problems. And if I could help, I would be very happy to help. And then the fourth is my presence in centres as an advisor. So I would attend the meetings, come to centres meetings, and be an advisor. Of course, Dr. Kamal and his assistant, Dr. Ralma, Al-Fujana, Ralma Al-Fikras, and Dr. Khidr Akbar. They work together. Of course, Dr. Nurjana. So I would be there also for this purpose. So these are the 4 times a month I am here, because I have been appointed as honorary fellow. And not least, I said for, last but not least, for rectors linking IIUM to UN Agenda 2030 with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, using the approach of Maqasid al-Sharia and Rahmatan lil-Alameen, mission of Islam. I think this is something new. Many people do not expect this. Some people may have their misgivings, but I took all this very, very positively as a great opportunity. Because to me, these new approaches, new concerns about global matters actually opens up a whole new horizon for Islamic action. Whether in the form of Islamisation, or in the form of Relevantisation, or in the form of contemporization, or in the form of integration, or synthesis, or critique, or whatever. Because the SDGs, you might say, or vision or Agenda 2030, is a culmination of universal concerns about the state of the world and the future of planet Earth. You know, all the conferences before Rio, we had Rio, and then you had before that Chanchu in Cancun, and then Rio, and then finally Paris, and I think this year they're going to have another one in Paris. And thousands of scientists, not just a few, in spite of American skepticism, or American government skepticism, not the scientists, certainly not the environmentalists, but scientists and environmentalists all over the world, thousands of them have been warning the world and the countries to do something about all this, about climate change resulting from emission of carbon dioxide gases and other poisonous gases and all that, coming from the use of fossil fuel and all that. And now many countries are now thinking of alternatives to fossil fuel. I think we may have to do that also in the next 10, 20 years. But implications on food production, on food security, on water, on the quality of and then population expected to be in 2030 or 2050 about 9 billion and more, and by 2070 it is going to be about 10 to 11 billion. And planet Earth is really sick now. And the environmentalists, American, Canadian environmentalists, have said this 20 years ago, that the development and the obsession with economic growth, the trajectory of economic development is certainly unsustainable. You've got to do something about it. Planet Earth just cannot take it. So they've been warning, but countries take it easy, and of course America blaming China rather than blaming itself for all this. But we have to also bear, the brunt of this. We have tsunami before, and hopefully not another one. And just a few days ago, huge storm in Langkawi affecting Kedah with 130 schools being shut down. And then you have the Johor River being poisoned by the irresponsible companies and factories and industries. So we are having our share of this global problem. So this opens up a new dimension for Muslim thought and Muslim action and Muslim academia or Islamic academia. So that's why I said that we have marginalized these issues. We're concerned more about our aqidah, our sharia, akhlaq, and establishing Islamic State, what have you. And so this opens up this room, you might say a new world for Islamization, a bright new world for Islamization, relevantisation, contemporization. Can I use Taqsi for contemporization? It works, huh? Taqsi, okay. Relevantisation, I still cannot get the word for it. Okay, give me the citation. Da'wah is, I'm not using the transliteration, so please forgive me. No, I'm not using transliteration because I want to read it fast. So instead of imara, instead of using the dash, I use double A, Islah, and the H doesn't have the dot. So please, all those academic pedantics, please forgive me for that. Imarat al-Ard, Umran, and I'adat al-Idah Hadara, which is the reconstruction of human civilization. That's what we should have been doing. And of course, Prof and Dr. Nigerian Dr. Bin Nabi, Murid Bin Nabi, has been talking about this, that we are the people with this responsibility to reconstruct a modern civilization. And RLA, Rahmatan lil Alamin. So more of this in the next topic. So I'm really grateful for our matter for opening up to us these great opportunities. We cannot remain in our silos, in our compartmentalized world, oblivious to all the challenges going on around us. Now I go to expectations. My expectation. In view of the new challenges in contemporary and future Malaysia, future of ASEAN, future of Muslim countries, and we are entering into an era of uncertainties and national anxieties, and the world entering into what Ziauddin Sardar calls a post-normal era. And he has an institute in London devoted to post-normal studies, not abnormal studies. Because abnormal, well, there are many people undergoing that abnormalities. Though we are now in post-normal. Some people would put it post-truth. as though truth is no longer there. You can just manipulate anything and claim it to be true, but it's not true. We have social, political, and religious tensions. Hopefully not much more, but you can never say. And of course, ecological crisis. Not as bad in our country, but in Indonesia certainly, Indonesia and Philippines. Then the effects of serious climate change. I think the scientists are saying that we should try to keep the temperature of the world below 2 degrees Celsius before the end of this century. If we go beyond that, then before we come to the end of that's really bad. Prolonged effects of international political turbulence. Some turbulence are being manufactured. The one in the Middle East is manufactured. So manufactured by superpowers for their interest, so that you continue buying arms from them, because the economy is going down. One of the ways to prop up the economy is to sell arms. And if you can sell that to rich countries, then you keep the economy up and you keep the Muslim countries down. Deterioration, economic deterioration. I think Malaysia we're feeling it now. People B40 and below is feeling it very bad, and people in the rural areas are very, very bad. And this is now, but imagine the next 10, 20 years before 2030. And that is why I think 2030 is a good milestone. We will have 17 years because it was enunciated in 2015. Now it's 2020 onwards. So we have another decade to go, and a decade is too short to really plan things in a big way. Food shortages, unemployment. I was told 700 odd graduates are unemployed now. And things can get worse. Urban poverty. Look at the conditions of the people living in those PPRT. Very small rooms. Children cannot stay inside, they have to stay outside. And then outside they do all kinds of bad things. These are Muslim children and families living around Kuala Lumpur in those high-rise flats, living in boxes. This now. Then entrenched cancer of bribery. This is not just Malaysia's problem, it's a problem of the Muslim world. So, and I feel ashamed every time I compare how our countries perform vis-a-vis the Scandinavian countries, vis-a-vis Singapore. Singapore and Hong Kong are usually among the top 10 in terms of transparency, the perception of transparency and integrity. But how come Muslim countries, with all the Quran and the Sunnah and the mosques and the beards and all that, we're not able to prevent or cure this cancer of bribery? Hopefully it's not terminal. So hopefully something can be done about it. Maybe second, fourth degree is the last, isn't it? So maybe we are in the second and third degree, hopefully. Corruption and fraud. I was going to on the second day of Eid, I was going to the old airport and in the car from there to Kampung Tunku. So the driver was telling me, Prof, please put your seatbelt. I usually don't put my seatbelt because usually policemen up there. And usually they will stop and they smile and they'll be asking for money. And because if you are given the ticket, then you have to give a 300 and the hassle of having to go to the police station, all that. So people would just give the money. And this is still going on. And this is not in Bangi or in the villages, this is in the city. And policemen are still being bribed. Of course, we know the economic background of this. The low salary, the volume of work. We understand, we sympathize with the police officers. But they felt no pinch of guilt at all for accepting money. And of course, for most people, the culprits, they don't mind paying rather than having to go through the hassle of going to the police station. This is in Malaysia. What about Egypt? What about Iraq? What about Afghanistan? What about Pakistan? What about Bangladesh? And many others. Then also drug abuse. We don't talk about drug abuse because it is so well entrenched. And as if there's nothing we can do about it. And the number keeps increasing. And the worst part, the most shameful thing is our children. 85, if not 90%, because I was talking to one of these junkie officers who used to work with the drug addicts. And he said about 87, 90% are Muslim children, and still are Muslim children. The pushers are non-Muslims. The big tawkis are non-Muslims. But the consumers are Muslims. See, this has been going on for the last 40 years. Where are we? And then permissive, hedonistic culture of the younger generation, and now the new disease of babies addicted to new gadgets and social media, including my own grandson having this problem of addiction to the gadget. And I'm not trained to solve this problem. I can solve the problems of postgraduates, but 5-year-old babies, I'm not trained for that. So I need to go through another training, but there's no time. Social media, of course, Prof Hassan, this is his area now, alhamdulillah. He's going all over the world telling people to use the Islamic way of using the media, the Islamization of the media. So we expect our staff and students in IIUM and Kuliah of Revealed Knowledge and Human Sciences in particular, our Kuliah, my Kuliah. I belong to this Kuliah from the very beginning as the first founding dean of the Kuliah, with Dr. Abdul Hamid also supporting in many ways. So we expect our Kuliah to produce leaders, our students to become the problem solvers of the world, not the problem creators of the world. And new leaders. And new leaders. I cannot stop talking about the new leaders. New breed of God-fearing, competent, muttaqi, efficient, humble, honest, with Allah, with sense of accountability to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with awareness of al-akhirah, what's going to happen on the day of judgment, with all that, with ummatic, shuratic attitudes. Shuratic is from shura. So using, Professor Ismail he likes to add this thing, the Arabic word with something, in English, ummatic, tawhidic, shuratic, hadithic, Quranic. So you better get used to it. with taqwa, with jadala, competency, amana, adala, tawadu, rahma, and shura ummatic disposition. So we expect the academic staff of IIUM now. The human sciences academic staff, going by what Sheikh Tahir Jabir and also Tariq Ramadan have said, these are the people, ulama al-waqi. Ulama al-waqi. So here we have Prof Said Arabi Ide, Prof Fawzan, Wahabuddin, Prof Shukran. They belong ulama al-waqi. These are the scholars who know the realities of the world, who are studying the realities of the world, either politically, sociologically, psychologically, or communicationally, if I can use that word, yeah? Or even history. So you are the experts of worldly affairs. So you are ulama al-waqi, according to Tariq Ramadan and Sheikh Tahir Jabir, and also Yusuf al-Qaradawi. And people in revealed knowledge and human science, revealed knowledge and heritage, they are the ulama al-nas. Ulama al-nas. These are scholars of the religious texts. Their research is based on texts of wahi. So they are experts in Quran and Sunnah. These are texts. These are authoritative, revealed texts, and they are experts in that. So I think we have reached a point where no one group can solve the problem of humanity or mankind or social or even individual by just referring to only one side, one wing. We need both wings to fly. The Ummah can fly when the ulama al-waqi and the ulama al-nas work together and not remaining in splendid compartmentalization, in splendid isolation from one another. And the work, now of course now with our rector, now emphasizing transdisciplinary research, interdisciplinary research, and all that, this is just timely. So we need to work on this, because social problems are complex problems, and you require the input from different dimensions. So man is a complex being, and society even more complex. So you need to have both. And Dr. Abdul Hamid brought you both together in 1990 for a great purpose, because he, Dr. Abdul Hamid, saw the people in revealed knowledge and human sciences, basically in social sciences, as the leaders. To him, he felt that doctors, engineers should be doing their work, taking care of health, good instructions, not as leaders. He thinks that the social scientists are the leaders because they know social problems. It's not about building bridges. It's not about construction of buildings. It's about constructing human society on the best foundations. And the foundations have to be made up of revealed knowledge and acquired human knowledge. So Dr. Abdul Hamid brought us together in 1990 for this big purpose. And now, with these problems on our heads, and this is a time for us to be relevant, if not to be solving the problem out there. Al-Jabir calls this a Jam'u Bayna al-Qira'atayn. It's not the first to say it. I think even Ashur must have also addressed this. Huh? Of course, many people, even the Christians before us, were using this too. Maybe they got it from the Muslims, I don't know. But Christian scholars also refer to the Book of God, which is the universe, and then the Bible, which is the word of Jesus, according to that. But from what we know, it's not the word of Jesus, it's the word of his disciples, or later people who came back, who came and wrote about what they heard about Jesus. Anyway, it's a combination of two books. So Shataha calls this al-Jama' bayna al-qira'atayn. This is the way forward. You cannot just have one book and say this is it. And I don't think the Mufti can just give a fatwa on his own. Of course, we have only one Mufti in Malaysia. We have one, but there are also state Muftis. So there are many Muftis in Malaysia. But even the production of fatwa should be based on the bringing together experts in the relevant fields. So Tariq Ramadan was telling us in his book, Radical Reform, that that kind of collaboration has been taking place in Kuwait. But I think in Malaysia, I think we already have that. Of course, with Islamic banking, we have the conventional bankers sitting together with the fuqaha, with the scholars of the mu'amalat sitting together. So it's going on in a way. But we don't want the Islamic scholars, the fuqaha, sort of being manipulated by the conventional people. So this has become to me a necessity in this day and age of knowledge interconnectivity and information explosion. Explosion of truth also with it. Now, new horizons. Several new horizons. To me, the advent of UN Agenda 2030, I did address this in Ipoh before my non-renewal of my contract. But of course, I did not popularize it here. But now, alhamdulillah, with our new rector addressing this issue, now the horizons are open before our eyes. Agreed upon by 193 countries, including Muslim countries, Malaysia, Indonesia. Indonesia is also trying to meet the target, and World Bank and UNDP and Badan Urusan Zakat in Indonesia are working together to find ways and means of what is now being popularized as green finance. And green is, in a way, an Islamic symbol. So I think people are going Islamic without knowing it. So never mind, let them use green, and then they find, this is Islamic. It's too late to turn back. Might as well go forward into Islam. So this extension of IOHK mission in IIUM, for me, this opens up ways and channels and windows and doors and highways for IOHK mission. No longer just confined to academia, and also a few academia under triple IT sort of influence. So by doing so, we are contributing to the solution of urgent, common, global issues facing the world and planet Earth for the next decade and more. And you know, so I don't want to repeat, I think you know this by now. If you don't know, then where have you been all this while? 17 global goals. All right. Okay, let me just read it, because for every one of these goals, we have to think how to apply maqasid al-sharia, how to apply even maqasid al-Quran, how to apply maqasid al-insan, maqasid al-Islam, al-Quran, so not just maqasid al-sharia. even maqasid al-sharia, can also be expanded. And scholars have expanded it. Current contemporary scholars. Qaradawi expanding it, Jasir Auda expanding it. I think, what else? Baisuni, I'm not sure. Many people are expanding it. These are expansions. The 5 remain core, but then you can have branches from it to address new issues. So the 17 goals, each one of them can be covered by the maqasid al-sharia. But don't forget, and I tried it, but I didn't have the time to go through, 169 targets. Each goal has at least 3 main targets, and each target has sub-targets and so on. When you look into it, you begin to float in the air. I begin to float in the air. Maybe you don't float in the air. Because those are measurable targets. That's the beauty about it. They're measurable. Of course, we have our critique of SDGs, and I would mention it. Because the SDGs look at 3 interconnected dimensions of human: economic, social, and environmental. So you have the 3 circles, basically. And where is the moral? Where is the spiritual? Where is the eschatological? Where is the metaphysical? Where is al-akhirah? Where is ruh? Whereas ruh is so essential. Many of these other problems could be seen as actually rooted in the diseases of the ruh, of the heart, of the nafs. That's where we come in. And that's our specialization. We are the doctors of the heart. And we are supposed to be there. People in Usuluddin, people in fiqh, and people in Quran and Sunnah, they are supposed to be there, providing the panacea, the therapy for these dimensions. We don't deny the importance of the social, the economic, the environmental. We can work with them, no problem at all. But for each of them, there is a spiritual dimension, there is a metaphysical dimension, there is an eschatological dimension, there is an ethical, moral dimension, not addressed by United Nations or by the UNDP. So we go in not with a sense of arrogance. Look, we have the whole thing, just take it from us. Go in there with humility to say, look, maybe there's another way of looking at our problems, which we have ignored. But I can understand why UNDP or UN will not address this issue. Because the moment you bring up spiritual, moral, ethical, then the religions are going to quarrel. And they want to avoid this. So they put aside all these controversial things, and they are the most important things from Islamic point of view. Right? So they are addressing poverty, hunger, pollution, inequalities, poor quality of education, suppressing women. And these are, to me, symptoms of deeper diseases of the heart, of the soul. And who is giving us this truth about human progress? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Creator Himself. The Creator Himself has said in the وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا صَدَقَ اللَّهُ الْعَظِيمُ. So Allah Himself is telling us the problem. You cannot get this answer from UNDP. You cannot get this from philosophers. They will be quarreling with one another until doomsday. And that is why I think philosophy has failed its purpose and condemned to death by Stephen Hawking in one of his latest interviews. Science, philosophy is dead. Dead for them. For us, philosophy, of course, not in the sense of just a mental gymnastics, but it's trying to understand the hikmah behind what is happening in the world. And the maqasid is, as been stated by many people, is the philosophy of Islam, philosophy of Islamic jurisprudence. So it's philosophy with a practical purpose, not just for the mind to go into abstraction and enjoy this wonderful trip into nirvana just for yourself. Talking about scarcity of water, I'm facing it now. So we need to go into this and see where do we come in? How do we come in? What do we do? Of course, Malaysia is also addressing this problem, and the last government made it a part of the five-year Malaysia plan, the 11th Malaysia plan. Now we are working on the 12th Malaysia plan. So I think IIUM should also be assisting the government in making sure that the 12th Malaysia plan incorporates also IIUM's offer of assistance to provide assistance in terms of social sciences from the perspective of Islam and reveal knowledge from the perspective of the Quran. Psychology is very, very important. Knows it, but not just an extension of Freudian psychoanalysis, but based on the nafs and ruhi, the spiritual psychology of Islam, going back to the writings and the wisdom of Al-Ghazali and the Sufi scholars. Number 3, ensure healthy lives, promote well-being for all. Even the concept of well-being. This is another thing. On the conceptual level, there are so many things we can dialogue with them. Even sustainability. That's my first thing that people talk about, sustainable development. What is your definition of sustainability? And most people will go back to the commission of Brunt, what's his name, Brundtland, Commission, where it's the ability of the present generation to utilize the resources without depriving the next generation, the future generation, from using the resources. But that's looking at the environmental, economic, and social resources. Right? But sustainability, sustainability is something that can be that is on a long-term basis, something that is sustained for a long-term basis. And the word for that in Islam is barakah. When somebody has barakah, the goodness stays on and the goodness is amplified. The goodness is amplified. Not only stays on, but it's amplified. So not only you have your economic wealth, but growth is going upward. And for us, it is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is the one who gives the risk and also the one who tightens it. So barakah is very, very important. But sustainability of UNDP does not have this dimension of barakah, because the divine is by definition excluded from the very beginning. You talk of planet Earth. We talk of the Earth as Allah's creation. In fact, as Allah's, you might say, the whole universe is garden of Allah. This is the kingdom in a way of mulkullah. So Allah has the mulk of the whole universe. And the earth is a very special place created by God for man only. So our conception of the earth is different. Our conception of man is different. Our conception of success is different. Even well-being, kesejahteraan. From our point of view, kesejahteraan must include the spiritual and the moral. Without that, it is not kesejahteraan. Even success, true success is al-falah. True failure is al-khusran. So many concepts. So if we engage the people involved in this, the non-Muslims, then we are also indirectly imparting Islamic messages, Islamic teachings, indirectly. In fact, indirectly doing da'wah to the non-Muslim world. And once they're convinced that you can do it in the proper way, I think maqasid al-sharia can be explained in a very rational way, and it can be seen as something universal. So that is also opening the door to Islam, and not just opening the door for IIUM to bring in their scholars. Achieving gender equality, it depends what you mean by gender equality. Okay? Because equity is fine with us, but if you talk about equality in the sense that both men and women are treated equally by God, based on your actions, not based on your gender, that's fine. But then responsibilities are not the same. And capabilities are not the same. But we have to understand also that the UNDP people and UN people, they have scholars who belong to the worldview of secular humanism. And some of them may be also leaders of feminism in the West. So they find a place in UN organizations, so they get their thing in. Sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. We begin with, what is water? And where does water come from? And Allah says He creates everything from water. So water is in a sense a very, very sacred, not that sacred by sacred I mean it doesn't have any divine quality, but that Allah has created it for a noble purpose. But that idea of the sacredness of water is not with the West. Maybe with the Hindus, because some of the river Ganges is considered sacred, but their sacredness may be defined as something else. It could be a manifestation of the deities, but not in our sense. Access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, modern energy for all. Yeah, okay, we have problems with that. But there's another dimension that this is the ethical dimension. In the Quran, Allah so many times tells us that everything is created for you. We have made things subservient for you. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. And what He wants from us is not, we cannot pay Him back, just be grateful. And shukr is not that. And in the Western conception, shukr is to the nation, shukr is to the leader, shukr is to the ideology, shukr is to the country, not to God. Whereas you are using God's resources. Even the mind, the intellect, the ability to think, the ability to be intelligent is God-given. But in the worldview of secular humanism or agnosticism, or empiricism, or naturalism, or materialism, atheism, postmodernism, positivism. These notions are not there. Building resilient infrastructure, this is where CAED comes in. Inequality within and among countries. What mechanism can we bring in? Zakat is one mechanism. Waqf is another mechanism. And many other things. Takaful is one mechanism. And making cities and human settlements inclusive, say, this is again CAED come in. Sustainable consumption and production patterns. Economic faculty can come in. Climate change, many disciplines can come in here. Use of the ocean, seas, and these are all, these have to do with the environment. I think 7 of the goals have to do with the environment. And the other 10 divided between economics and social. The moral and the spiritual are not there. This is where we come in. Not to condemn, but to help. Because to provide them the true reality, which is Alam al-Shahada and Alam al-Ghayb. Alam al-Ghayb is not addressed at all. Even Alam al-Shahada is not addressed the way it should be addressed. Because Alam al-Shahada contains ayatullah. So everything in the world is an ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ayatullah al-Kawliya. So a lot of things we have in our bag to be delivered to the rest of the world. Protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainably manage forests, combat desertification, and halt and reverse land degradation, halt biodiversity loss. Part of it is happening in Malaysia. I do not know about desertification, but maybe some countries in ASEAN may be experiencing this now. But reverse land degradation is happening everywhere. And sustainably managed forests, this is a real challenge in Malaysia because you have every year, you have a burning of the forests. And then number 16, promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development. So again, the goal, the goal is sustainable development, because without it, planet Earth cannot survive. So they have to have all these things. But as we said, Islam has its own notion of development and sustainable. And sustainable development from Islamic point of view is not quite the same as UNDP's conception of sustainable development. We accept the economic, the social, but we have to add on to all that. Because man, this goes back to the conception of man. He is essentially ruh in a body. And that body is made up of earth components, and that will decay. It's the ruh that survives. And it's the ruh that thinks, it's the ruh that feels, it's the ruh that connects with people. It's the ruh that accepts values and so on. So that dimension is missing. Maybe by 2030, I think many of you will be around. I won't be around, so don't worry, you will not miss me. But then Muslim countries, if they can be united, if they can put their backs together. We have what, 57, 58 countries. If United Nations, Muslim bloc, were to say, look, brothers, we can't go on this way. You have to address the spiritual, the moral, the ethical. Keep to your religions, no problem. We're not imposing our religion. But please bring in the ethical, the moral, and the spiritual, however you want to define it. But the way we define it, we want to do it our way. If Muslim countries can show that by 2030, then at least by 2050, hopefully things will be better. And then by the time your grandchildren comes to 2077, the beginning of the 16th century Hijrah, hopefully things will be better for the inshallah. If Yom al-Qiyamah doesn't occur by that time, we don't know. But even if it's going to occur, Hadith says, even if you know it's coming the next day, you still have a seedling, plant that seedling. That is a positive attitude of Islam, not submitting to just fate. Things are going to end anyway. Why plant? But the Prophet said, plant it. So that is a positive thing about the prophetic worldview. 17, the last point, implementation, revitalize global partnership. Okay. All right. Then I come to, this is still on opening the horizons. So we're using maqasid al-sharia. And but we should not forget, always when we talk about this concept of maqasid or wasatiyah before hadara, before that, qabla hadara, najib wasatiyah, now rahmatan lil alamin. Don't forget, they're all three in one. What we have done in the wrong way was to just isolate hadara and forget the rest. Then we isolated wasatiyah, forget the rest. Now we're taking rahmatan, forgetting the rest also. So I'm saying wasatiyah and khayr ummah, these are the mission for the ummah. Al-amru bil ma'ruf, one mission. The other one is shuhada al-nas, a second mission. But bring all this together, it becomes rahmatan lil alamin. So we have our own triune mission, not trinity, triune mission, three in one. So I don't want, after this government is over, then another one comes up and says, just picking from the Quran. This is cherry picking. Whatever is convenient to become a political slogan, you take it. You don't want to take what has been taken by others, because that means you are not new. It's nothing new. But you have to take the Quran only. You have to tell all these people, "Udkhulu fi silmi kaffa." So Islam kaffa is what we need to emphasize all the time. So you have al-amru bil ma'ruf and nahy anil munkar, shuhada 'ala an-nas, and these are really very, very challenging missions. To become shuhada 'ala an-nas, to become, witnesses over mankind about, say, truth, honesty, integrity, amar ma'ruf. So the one becoming witnesses in the eyes of Allah is the one embodying those values, not the one just preaching those values. Preaching will be easy, like what I'm doing is actually preaching, and I'm quite happy with that. But the real thing is how to embody, how to manifest, how to internalize, how to make all this part of your being without having to sit in too many words. But since I don't have that in my being, so I use too many words. Okay, so the new horizons, if I can just list them. One is an opportunity to share with other people, with UN and international community, the Quranic worldview, and to clarify the secular humanist or positivist perceptions or misconceptions regarding success and failure. What is true success? What is true failure? What is prosperity? What is misery? What is victory and defeat? What is life and death? And when it comes to life and death, then we hear that Allah says, do not think that those matters of Allah are dead. بل إنهم أحياء عند الله يرزقون. عند ربهم يرزقون. Those who are killed, they are not dead. They are being sustained by Allah. So in other words, our conception of life and death is not the same as their conception of life and death. So for the one who is no longer, the brain is dead, the heart is dead. Right? But to Allah, alive and being, subhanAllah. So many things from our worldview which the world is looking forward to. I do believe that this is something you might say emotional, not something rational, that this contemporary civilization cannot survive for too long. Maybe by 2050, you might see already real symptoms of the by the end of this century, then I think could be the end of Western civilization as we know it, with the partition of Europe, with the internal collapse of USA. We don't know what's going to happen to the Muslim world. We hope our leaders are not going to repeat the mistakes of the past. That's why we need to produce the generation now for the new leaders. For our grandchildren, your grandchildren are going to be the leaders in 2077 when we come to the next Hijri century, inshallah. So it's an excellent also C3, excellent opportunity to introduce the approach of Maqasid al-Sharia as universal necessary objectives of comprehensive and holistic human development. Not just sustainable development, but comprehensive and holistic human development, embracing the social, political, economic, environmental, intellectual, moral, spiritual, eschatological, ukhrawi dimensions. It's another great opportunity to break out of silos, I mentioned this earlier, of compartmentalization, of self-imposed uzla and fragmentation by venturing into transdisciplinary perspectives. We can also harness Tawhidic sciences. I think by 2050, Tawhidic sciences and technology would be the dominant, the mainstream sciences by 2050. Of course, I will be around, but your grandchildren can, those who remember, you tell your grandchildren, Grandpa Kamal Hassan did say this on the 14th of August, 2019. And his colleagues agreed to it. That includes Professor Said Arabi, he did also another former rector. So, great opportunity to break out of silos. We can also harness Tawhidic sciences and technology for green plus akhirat future of mankind. Because now people are using green, fine. But green is only for this world. But for us, green is also for the hereafter, because the inhabitants of Al-Jannah used to wear green silk clothing. What was the name of the Quran? And so green is the afterlife symbol for prosperity. But they're using green, and I don't blame. They are among the first to use green. The green movement in Europe for the environment and fighting against the killing of whales. They're doing very good work, really. I mean, they're very serious about it. And many Europeans were very serious about this. They don't eat meat anymore. They go vegetarian, not for religious reasons, but for environmental reasons. And of course, we hope one day that the research on artificial meat can really be successful, so that we don't have to depend on, we don't have to keep on slaughtering the cows. For Qurban is okay, we need the real cows, not artificial cows. But other than that, we can eat other things. What we need is just protein, isn't it? So we can get from vegetables and artificial meat. And I was looking at one video on TV. They have developed artificial meat, but hopefully it's not more costly than the real meat. So green alternatives. I think that should be our university now. Alhamdulillah, we're getting greener and greener, inshallah. And the streams with streams for life, inshallah. I don't think it's going to be green because we're not in charge of what's up there in the mountains. As long as we're not in control of what's up there, there's no way we can make this green, because we are just inheriting all that from the source up there. And more and more development going on. So our stream may not be green, but alhamdulillah our trees are green, and inshallah our people will be green, our ideas should be green also, inshallah, not brown or black. Oh, sorry, okay. You're putting green shirt today, huh? That's really bad.
No, this is the
yeah. And then an excellent opportunity to introduce to the world the Islamic conception of development in the comprehensive and holistic meaning of the term. The contemporary Muslim experts' views of the maqasid, the Sharia higher objectives, this is very good view. I think, so this name, Jassim. That the higher objectives can be understood not just as preserving, protecting, conserving, but actually developing and enhancing. So when you say hifzul aqal, it's not just protecting aqal, it's not just preserving it, it's not just, but it is developing it and enhancing it. So that's good. That's what we need. So many things can come in. In fact, one brother, one scholar in America was saying, he did not say Islamization of knowledge, but he said this is Islamization of the intellect. So hifzul aqal, this is a proper use of the God-given, the most precious gift of Allah is the aqal. And using it in the proper way, the way that He wants it, leads you to products which are green, in other words, which are really good. And this is Islamization of the intellect, which we are also pursuing here. So you can use hifzul aqal. Now, at least Islamization, IIUM, has a new, you might say, philosophical underpinning. Before this, we were using mainly iqra. Using mainly iqra, bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq, using the story of Adam to become the foundation for Islamization of the intellect. Now we can use maqasid al-Sharia for another philosophical foundation underpinning the agenda of Islamization. Okay, good. Another 30 minutes left. I will hurry up. Good, okay, because I'm told they have prepared something very delicious for you. I don't know, but this is just conveying. I'm not doing any advertising for them. Because this is maybe hearsay, I don't know. But they say it's nasi Arab and yeah, so it's not just about protecting, but the word hifz can be understood also in the sense of developing, sustaining, enhancing, subhanAllah. Okay, good. So with that, ad-deen, al-nafs, al-aqal, al-nasl, blah, 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 you can expand it and include new dimensions, human rights, human dignity, human equality, etc. to embrace all the 70 goals and even go beyond the 3 pillars, which is social, economic, and environmental, and go beyond the 5 overarching principles of sustainable development: peace, prosperity, planet, people, partnership. You look at all these 5 principles, there's a lot you can add to all this. What kind of peace? How are you going to get that peace? Islam is salam. We say salam left and right. How do we institutionalize salam? And prosperity, what do we mean by prosperity? It is falah. And then what is planet Earth? It belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And who are people and nas and partnership can use this ta'aruf. We have made you into nations and tribes. وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا, as a basis for partnership. Anyway, so there are so many things that you can amplify, improve, beautify the principles of sustainable development. And I'm sure you NDP are very, very happy if you do that. In fact, they would like to see how different religious communities, how faith communities would try to accept this and then embellish, expand, as long as we are moving towards one goal. That is, in Islam, in fiqh, maslahat of the world as a whole. To them is well-being of the planet. But for us, it's maslahat. And this principle, maslahat, underlies the concept of maqasid. So here I come to new opportunities for Islamic finance, social impact, and for application of Islamic ethics and Islamic spiritual values, because UNDP conception and development focuses on social, economic, and environmental interlinkages, neglecting the moral, spiritual, and eschatological dimensions of human development. An example of Islamicization and Relevantisation of SDGs is the introduction of Islamic green finance development, ecosystem and prospects. And here is a long quotation from the Securities Commission Malaysia. They have come up with a report working together with the World Bank and based on the conference they had in Kuala Lumpur in 2018. So they came out with this using the Maqasid, Sharia. This is what Datuk Sri Ranjit Singh said. He says the maqasid, and he said, using, of course, somebody else writes for him, but this is what he says. Islamic finance shares similar underlying principles as that of sustainable finance. That is, financial stability and economic growth. We have that in Islamic finance. Poverty alleviation and wealth distribution, financial and social inclusion, as well as environmental preservation. This has therefore allowed for Islamic finance to capitalize on these similarities, not to become capitalist, but to capitalize on these similarities, to become a natural vehicle to propagate the elements of green finance. Of course, for us, green future means this world and al-akhirah. We want a green future in al-akhirah. We don't want a green future here and a red future in al-akhirah. It's possible. If you forget the ukhrawi dimension, the spiritual, the moral, then you can get everything green here, but red over there. God forbid. So I just repeat here, new opportunities are being opened up for KIRKHS departments to explore new areas of research and relevancy. Although the SDGs concentrate on economic, social, and environmental dimensions, my question is, what about psychological, sociological, governance is where political science comes in, spiritual, usuluddin comes in, intellectual, fiqh comes in, metaphysical, usuluddin, Quran, Sunnah, and holistic education. This is the kuliah of education comes in. What about green medicine? What about green science? What about green technology, green architecture and environmental design, green ICT, Prof Hassan? What about green law? So let's not talk about imposing the Sharia, bringing in green law. That is the Sharia. So because people like the word green, so they use it bil hikmah. So green law. Green law, inshallah, we have green crimes. Green party. Green party. That is in Europe, isn't it? They have not gained much following because people don't like to stop eating meat. Especially the Americans. Look at the burgers and all that. Huge. Okay, conclusion. Am I on time? So in light of the challenging and adverse scenarios, domestically and internationally, we sincerely hope and pray that IIUM staff and students would be among the Ummah's problem solvers, the ulul albab, that is people possess sound intellects, and the intellect which is connected to God. The intellect which is intuitive. The intellect which is grateful to his master. The intellect which also is very much aware of the hereafter. The intellect that never forgets God. This is the intellect of Ulul Albab. And at the end of the intellection, they say, رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا سُبْحَانَكَ فَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. They become so conscious of the red future, they become the green future. The Ulul Ilm. Hopefully we are part of this group also. Because the prophets and the ulama, the real ulama, are the Ulul Ilm, the people who have been endowed true knowledge. And then the ulama, the scholars who have this khushu', khashi'un, and also not just khashi'un, but khashyatun. Khashyatun. Khashya, khashi'un. Ulama khashi'un. The scholars who have this feeling of awesome regard for Allah and fear of His retribution and looking forward to His reward. We want to be the leaders who are capable with aman, trustworthiness. We are al-qadirun and al-umana. We carry amana with us, and we have the means, the ability to perform our tasks efficiently and proficiently, professionally. We are the muslihun, people who bring about reform, people who not just bring about reform, but able to bring together two warring parties or two warring groups, like we have now 5 warring Malay parties, all scrambling for power, and all are saying now, claiming they're doing it for the sake of the country and people and religion, but when they get in, and they forget what they said, that it's just power for my party, and so on. So Muslihun is the group of people who can bring together people who are not on good terms. And so, and we have already the basis for that. The common aqidah is there. But somehow, because political differences are so deep, we cannot come together. But for our future in Malaysia, particularly in Malaysia, because our number is quite small, 65%. Maybe by 2050 it could be more if we produce more. And I think the other people may not be too keen to produce. Like in Europe, they expect by 2050 there'll be more Muslims than Christians in Europe. We are good in procreation. That's about it. Other than that, other people are better than us. And then the dua bil hikmah wal hal. So we are the people who preach Islam with hikmah, and also by manifesting the virtues of Islam in real terms. And then the Ibadur Rahman, Allah describes the Ibadur Rahman as people of great humility, and people not concerned about what people say about you, and then you just pass by those people who try to taunt you, just say, yeah, okay, leave me alone, salam. Okay, then the wasail of rahmatan lil alameen in real terms. So inshallah, we hope that our academic staff will be able to convey this to our students. And IIUM can, in fact, I'm sure the student affairs with Dr. Prof Zulkifli Hassan being our own product and a good leader, and he has studied leadership very well, he should be able to take this up and mold our students to become the problem solvers, the ulul albab, the ulama, and also, and you have ulama al-waqi' and ulama al-nas working together, inshallah. So we have now the job of the heads of departments is to regularly review and revise the curricula not because the ministry is asking you for that, but in what way is our curricula really oriented to serve that purpose? If it is not oriented, because our curricula was drafted at a different time, when the environmental crisis was not that serious, when the earth is not being threatened now in a collective way. So we had that curriculum. We just do, small changes here and there, and that's not enough. So probably we may need to revise the curriculum in light of these current and future challenges, because we have to respond to the context. So the text has to respond to the context. So we have scholars of context and scholars of text in our curriculum. They need to come together. So that our social science programs, our humanities program, and revealed knowledge programs will be able to produce Islamic agents of social change and agents of civilizational transformation. Again, this is bombastic, but we want this message to be carried to our students in Malaysia and abroad. But we have seen some good products, I'm sure. Those of you who have been abroad, our rector has also seen how our alumni are performing throughout the world. Our rector has also gone to another side, the first rector to go to South Africa and met some of the Muslim students there. All right. So, in fact, our alumni are doing very well in many countries. So one day I hope there's a book on how our alumni is in fact changing societies for the better, inshallah. So in that way, IIUM can play a more meaningful global role by helping humanity to live in accordance with the higher objectives of the Sharia. And I would like to end with some reminders from the Quran. If you don't mind, I have another 10 minutes. 10 minutes? Good. This is part of dhikrullah, because we are in the last day of IIUM Tashriq. This is our dhikr. I take this from Tafhimul Quran because I find Mauludi's tafsir very useful here. Hopefully it is relevant to what we have discussed earlier. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. أيحسبون أنما نمدكم به من مال وبنين نسارع لهم في الخيرات بل لا يشعرون. And then إن الذين هم من خشية ربهم مشفقون والذين هم بآيات ربهم يؤمنون والذين هم بربهم لا يشركون. صدق الله العظيم. Okay, do they fancy that our continuing to give them wealth and children means that we're busy lavishing on them all kinds of good? We're talking about rich nations, the affluent nations, America, some countries in Europe, of course in Japan, and their population is increasing and their wealth also increase. They should not think just because of the increase of wealth and population and power that this is God lavishing them their ni'mah. They do not perceive the reality of the matter. Okay, now I read to you the tafsir given by Abu al-Maudi, rahimahullah. This question has been posed as a proof of the main theme of the surah. It is meant to remove the misconception of success, welfare, and prosperity. Remember I talked to you earlier about their misconceptions? Success, welfare, prosperity, but these are the words being used. We want prosperity, we want welfare, success, which the least believers have formed to delude themselves. According to them, the one who enjoyed the good things of life and wielded power and influence in the society had attained success. So in the ranking of countries which are successful or happy and so on, then you have those countries, non-Muslim countries, because they have the good things of life, the standards of living are high, all right, and they have power, and they have influence. So they are successful, but that's a very shallow, one-dimensional understanding of the concept of success. On the other hand, the one who is deprived of these things is a failure. This misconception had involved them in another serious misunderstanding. They thought that the one who had attained success was in the right. So if you're successful, you're big, you're powerful, you must be right. So we must be right. In other countries are wrong. They have to come to us. We have to bow to them. We have to bow to them. They don't have to come to us. How could he have attained all the successes? On the contrary, the one who was apparently deprived of these things was surely wrong in his creed and erroneous in his deeds and was under the wrath of God or gods. As this misconception is one of the greatest deviations of the materialists, the Quran has stated it and refuted it in different ways at different places and made the reality plain. For instance, see Al-Baqarah, see Al-A'raf, see Al-Tawbah, Yunus, Hud, Al-Ra'd, Al-Kahf, Maryam, Taha, Al-Anbiya, and so on. In order to remove the above-mentioned misconceptions, one should keep in mind the following. Success is a far higher thing than the material prosperity and the transitory success of an individual, community, or nation. Number two, it is absolutely wrong to consider prosperity and success as a criterion of truth and falsehood. Number three, it should be noted well that this world is a place of test. This conception is not there. We need to bring in this is a place of ibtila min Allah. And ibtila can come through khair, can come through shar. The test of Allah can come through good things or bad things, through adversities or niceties. But it is a period of trial. And Maududi has said it a long time ago. He said, just imagine you are in an examination hall. So we are in this world, in the examination hall of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this concept is not there at all in the secular humanist worldview perspectives, nations, organizations, what have you. It is true that even in this world, sometimes there is punishment or reward, but it is on a very limited scale. And even in this, there is an aspect of the test. Therefore, it is an utter folly to consider material success and prosperity. People keep on measuring material success and prosperity. GDP, per capita income, consumption of this and that, blah, blah, blah. And then they come up with, and then our countries are very low. But usually you have 3-4 countries, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, would be somewhere there. Again, going by the wealth of these countries. Not by the poverty of the heart, but by the wealth of by the depth of their pockets. Therefore, it is okay. All right. And that the recipient is in the right, and so the beloved of the Lord, and vice versa. Moreover, the tests and trials of individuals and communities are of many varieties, and the seeker after truth must understand at the outset that the worldly success or failure of the people is not the result of ultimate reward or punishment and cannot be regarded as a criterion for the right or wrong creed, morals and actions and a sign of being the beloved of God otherwise. I think the Jews use this a lot because they still regard themselves beloved of God. So I can do what I like because God loves me already. All the goyims, they are condemned. But we, the favorites of God, we can do whatever we like. So that Jewish mindset is still there. The whole world is not addressing it. So capturing Gaza, making it into the world's largest prison on earth, and then and now colonizing land next to it. West Bank is going to be colonized, all that, and America endorses that. And this is the greatest injustice, the greatest hypocrisy, and the greatest misconception of power. And 5 more minutes, very good. Now you're doing very well. One must have firm belief that truth and righteousness will ultimately gain victory over falsehood and wickedness. As regards to the criterion of truth and falsehood, right and wrong, one must judge this in the light of revelations and the teachings of the messengers, because common sense confirms the same and is supported by the general conception which mankind has always had of good and evil. Surely those who stand in awe for fear of their Lord, that is, they do not live a carefree life devoid of the fear of God. They live in awe of Him and are fully conscious that He oversees and watches them in all their motives and actions, and they are thus deterred from thinking and doing evil. We have full faith in the signs of the Lord. Here, about the signs of the Lord. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ بِآيَاتِ رَبِّهِمْ يُؤْمِنُونَ. Maududi says here, signs here means both divine revelations through the prophets and the signs found in man's own self and in the universe around him. To believe in the verses of the book is to affirm them, and to believe in the signs of human self and the universe is to affirm the realities which they point to. Alright, so that's about it. To the end, and I would like to take this opportunity once again to thank my dear brothers and sisters, particularly the senior ones, not the old ones, in the front row, on this side of the room. That side is young, this side is senior, for coming, wasting your time, for going to be 2 hours, but you'll be well rewarded after this, in this world, inshallah. Today. So, I thank you very much once again. Please forgive me for any mistakes, and I would like to, maybe we can have a bit of our at the end. I think we do this because I just want to seek forgiveness if I have said anything that might have injured your feelings. Whatever is good is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I am only responsible for bad things may have been in my presentation. قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.